What's up, you guys? Toby Real touring here, back home now, here in my camper where I live, and I've got the future Mrs. Toby Rail here. She's gonna hang out and chill while I record this TransAmerica bicycle tour overview. So it should be pretty good. It's totally all things that I've thought of while I was on the trail and points that I thought were worth sharing. Yeah, that are just really good and I think would mean a lot if you're planning to do the trip for yourself, or even just any kind of bike tour. I think it could be beneficial to that. So my first point is get in the mindset of discomfort. And that is kind of a blanket statement that can go over every single aspect of bike touring. Starting out, I mean, you're going from doing, I don't know, a couple miles on a ride to doing 50 to 80 miles a day. So right off the rip, you're already jumping into discomfort. Your legs are going to be hurting. Your bottom's going to be hurting from sitting on a saddle. You're going to be sleeping on the ground if you're camping. Just overall, you're going to take away all the comforts you have, like your couches and your bed and even your coffee pots to your, stove setup. Everything is consolidated into these four little bags, and you have to take everything and throw it out the window and get used to the mindset of discomfort. And the sooner you get into that mindset, the sooner you're going to be able to really enjoy your bike tour, the sooner you're going to be able to enjoy what's around you, and you're even going to have an appreciation for getting to be in that situation. Yeah. Next up is be prepared for gear to fail. While I was out there on the trail, there were numerous times where things that I had purchased broke or failed. And I think for me, that was very frustrating because I expected all of my gear to work the whole way through. And I didn't want anything messed up because, you're paying a lot of money for a lot of this stuff and you expect it to work, but sometimes it doesn't. And so you kind of evolve everything that you have as you go through the tour. You send things home that break, but be prepared for gear to fail. Now that could be your tent breaking. That's one thing that happened to Tony. His tent pole snapped in some high winds and he just had to adapt and tough it out with the tent that he had till he got to the next REI, and he did that beautifully. So that's a good example of gear failing and just kind of having to roll with the punches. Also having a backup plan on some more serious gear like Tony's tent's your shelter. We were in high winds, we were in cold Colorado weather. Having a tent was absolutely crucial. Down to survival. So Tony had a tent splint that he used to hold the pole together just until he could get to an REI, like you guys saw where he returned his tent. So just have some backups for more important things like your sleep system, your cook system. So for your food, that could be, if your stove breaks, you have a jar of peanut butter, things you can eat that are cold. It could be having patches for a sleep pad, things like that. Maybe more layers to throw on if you're in cold weather and your sleeping bag's not quite warm enough. Just having backups for the more important gear and not getting as frustrated when pieces of gear that don't really matter fail. Like maybe your sandals you have get blown out. Hey, it's okay. Throw them out. Get yourself a 78-cent pair of flip-flops from Walmart when you stop by. My next tip would be to set aside 0 days. And setting aside a 0 day is excellent because it allows your mind to kind of get refreshed. It allows your body to get refreshed. And yeah, your legs need that. You're going out there and you're doing 50 to 80 miles every day. It takes a toll on your legs, and it also takes a toll on your mind. And so taking that 0 day to hang out in town, get some good food, get some much needed rest is really beneficial. My next tip would be you don't need as much gear as you think. And for me, that became very apparent starting out. If you guys watched our video around day 5, we both sent pretty big packages home. I think you can go into it thinking, oh, I need these socks for this weather, and I need this jacket for exactly this weather, and this shirt for, and you can exhaust yourself worrying about every single piece of clothing that you'll need. And really, if you just plan towards one season, like just summer or just winter, you can pretty much narrow that down to under 10 articles of clothes, or even less than that if you're just a true minimalist. But that's something that I would have done from the start, is taking out everything that I thought I needed and really getting honest with, okay, I don't need this, I don't need that. Next tip is going to be get a good saddle. If you're riding a long distance ride, like I'd say anything over 1,000 miles, having a good saddle that you feel comfortable on is crucial. Now, it helps too for smaller bike tours, but for something where you're out there for multiple weeks to months to years, having something that you feel comfortable on is important. For me, that was a Brooks B17 leather saddle that was broken in prior to going on the trip and got broken in even more by the end of the trip. It's an excellent saddle. I highly recommend it. It's actually the only touring saddle that I've ever used, so I don't have any other recommendations. But for me, the Brooks B17 broke in quite nicely, and yeah, it's an excellent looking saddle that kept me comfortable for every single day of our bike ride. This right here is a tip that is a challenge that is within the cycling community, that is a great challenge, but it also feels incredible once you complete it, and that is completing a century ride. A century ride is doing 100 miles or more, and it just feels amazing to be on your bicycle doing 100 miles in a day. We did it one time, we did 105 miles, and it was literally just to get to a hotel in Pueblo, Colorado. And it turned out to be a wild mental experience. I mean, just being out there for that long on a saddle, and you just really start to zone in and even zone out at times. It was a really interesting experience that I think every true cyclist would appreciate. Expect some cars to get close, but don't let it ruin your day. When you go out there and you're riding on these back roads, these highways, you're sharing the road with some people who don't understand the 3 feet rule that you're supposed to give cyclists. Some of these cars will fly by you, and I'm sure if you watch any of my videos, you'll notice that there are cars that are getting way too close for comfort, and ultimately there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can shake your fist and you can get mad, but really all that does is just make your day more stressful, and it's just something to worry about that isn't in your control. So when you're out there and there's cars flying by you, the best thing you can do is stay in the shoulder, use the shoulder. Sometimes they put those rumble strips and there's nothing you can do. You have to ride in the road, and at that point it just comes down to being as visible as possible. So maybe you have a flashlight on your, rear tail light on your bike, or a headlight, and that can make you more visible, or just wearing bright colors. Gear that I liked. So I really enjoyed pretty much every piece of gear that I brought, minus a few little things. And it wasn't that I didn't enjoy them, it was just they weren't quite necessary for a bike tour. So for the gear that I liked, first up is my Arc'teryx Skyline shirts. It was that tan and navy shirt that I was wearing pretty much the entire tour, and they were incredible shirts that felt good, looked good, and dried very fast. They also didn't hold a lot of smell. Now, when you're on a bike tour, back to what I was saying earlier in the video, having minimal clothes is great, and if I had to pick clothes to wear for the rest of my bike touring career, it'd be those Arc'teryx Skyline shirts. They just feel so good, and they pretty much pack down to nothing. So that was an excellent piece of gear that I enjoyed. Next up was a piece of gear that I really didn't think much of when I bought, and that's the Lucy Light solar powered lantern. That was something that just made moving around in the tent easier at night. You're not having to fool with, okay, am I gonna need batteries for this thing soon? It was just super light. It blows up, and so you can compress it down. And again, you really start to appreciate things that fit down to nothing. So yeah, that was a piece of gear that I really enjoyed. Uh, this is a piece of gear that was incredible for the first 30 days when I was getting broke in. And that's the Body Glide chafe stick. A lot of you guys probably use chamois butter or I think it's like some like squirrel nutter butter thing, but the Body Glide is awesome because it comes in a deodorant stick looking mechanism, and it's easy to apply, and it really does help with chafing. So I'm a big fan of Body Glide now. Next piece of gear that I really enjoyed was my Specialized Rime mountain bike shoes. Those were great because they doubled as a pair of shoes that you could wear around town, and a pair of shoes that you could clip in. And I'm a big fan of clipping in. I believe it gives you an easier ride as you're going up hills, and you just feel more locked in and one with the bicycle. And then last, I really appreciated the Ortlib panniers. All of my bags were Ortlib except for my frame pack. And I mean, yeah, totally waterproof bags. It is amazing to be able to ride through a rainstorm and not have to worry if, or even the snow, if any of your stuff is soaked, because your bags are your only line of defense between the elements. And if you have bags that are just getting soaked, I mean, it is a nightmare riding around with stuff that is soaked because it just gets smelly. It doesn't dry. You don't have enough time to hang out and dry your stuff, especially if you're trying to maintain a certain schedule. So having 100% waterproof bags was a must for me, and the Ortlib panniers did flawlessly. This is a relatively common tip that I've read and heard about in a lot of different bike touring videos, and that is setting aside a few days prior to your tour where you ride high miles. That could be doing a 40 to 80 mile day just around your local bike loop. And even you can go the extra mile and put all your bags on and ride at the full touring setup. However, I feel what a ride, a long high mileage ride will do is get you used to sitting on the saddle for that long. And it also will help you know how your back will feel and how your body responds to being on a bicycle for 5+ hours. And I think that's something that I'm most grateful for that I did. Is I did a bunch of 50 to 60 mile rides before I went on this bike tour, and I really learned how my body responded to high miles. And so sometimes people just need to get off the saddle for a little bit. So if you're riding and around mile 30 your back starts to hurt and your legs start to hurt, knowing that ahead of time just completely takes out any of that feeling of like, oh man, I'm not going to be able to do this. But instead, you know, okay, I've expected this. I knew it was going to happen. Take the time you need off the bike, and then you can get back on without feeling totally discouraged. So ride a few high miles before you go on your bike tour. All right, this tip only applies to you if you are the navigator for the trip, if you're the one with the maps and figuring out the route. So some of you are going to be solo, and that's, yeah, you don't have to do it. But if you're riding in a group and you're the one who's kind of figuring out where you're staying each night, what I would recommend doing is spend one day a week planning a few days ahead. And what was so nice about having the TransAmerica bicycle maps already pre-made with different hostels, you know, being displayed on the route, different hotels, I was able to map out one day a week, 7 days ahead of time. Like, I know where I was staying 7 days ahead of time. And what that really did was help me enjoy the moment more. I was able to really focus in on, okay, like, I know where I'm going to be tonight. I know the exact amount of miles I have to do today. And that gives you peace of mind, because the cross-country bike ride is such a big task. Just thinking about, oh my gosh, I have thousands of miles left to go, can really get to you. And so only having 7 days planned out can really help you break that down, you know, eating that elephant one bite at a time. So plan out 7 days ahead best you can. This tip goes without saying, but when you're on a bike tour, you need to be flexible. Now, that could look like a number of different things. Maybe a campground that you thought was going to be open is closed, or maybe a hotel is all booked out, or maybe you have a flat tire and you have no tubes left and you have to get a ride into town 15 miles off route. Whatever that looks like, being flexible is a great mindset to adopt before you go into the bike tour. It's not something that comes easy for everyone. It was something that I definitely had to work towards as I was riding, but yeah, being flexible to whatever the ride throws at you is excellent, and it'll help you enjoy everything more. Food and nutrition, those are two things that I did not think about at all. I just thought, hey, I'm a young 20-something-year-old kid, I can handle whatever, I can eat whatever, and I'll be fine. That is not the case. After so many days of eating Dollar General granola bars and Hostess Twinkies and fried food, your body really starts to take a toll. And luckily I made it through by finding healthy options whenever I could. There were still, as you've seen from my videos, multiple days where we were eating straight up junk food. And yes, our body was able to use those calories and keep us moving, but you just don't feel as good as when you can eat something a little bit healthier. There were several days where we did get healthier options, and you can tell a huge difference in your riding capabilities and just how clear you feel in your mind. So if you can help it, figure out maybe how you can get mail drops of healthier stuff, or just target healthier options on the trail. However, most of the time you're going to be going through little country towns that only have a gas station or a Dollar General, and you don't really have access to those specialty health food stores that you might get in bigger cities or bigger towns. So knowing that in advance, what you're going to have available to you is good, because you can plan out what you're eating better. One thing I wanted to explain for our TransAmerica bicycle tour that happened was we actually were not able to go to Montana because the weather got so bad. We had that experience on Santiam Pass where we were caught in a blizzard, and getting down to the other side in Sisters, Oregon, I told Tony that we're only going further north. We're only going to be moving more into the snow, only moving into the lower teens at night. So ultimately we made the decision to not ride into Montana and then down through Yellowstone, but instead ride straight through the bottom of Idaho up to Jackson, Wyoming, and we got back on trail then. Now, what that did was it cut off about 300 miles of the TransAmerica, and we were so bummed about it, guys. Like, it wasn't anything we wanted to do, but it was more or less just something we had to do to stay safe. This was something we wanted to go out and do safely, and we both had families back at home, and so taking unnecessary risks just wasn't really our style. So if you're watching our video and you're wondering why were they at Adventure Cycling headquarters, or why wasn't this section the right happened, that's what happened. And hey, maybe one day we'll go back and we'll ride that section we didn't get to hit, but for now it is what it is. All right, last thing I will talk about is what's next with the channel. Right now, the only plans that I have for this channel are to keep it up to allow people who are planning for the TransAmerica Bicycle Tour to have just a reference to go to and see things they might want to do on the trail, see some advice, whatever it is, or even just enjoy watching another bike touring video. I really only did these vlogs just so my family could have something to watch, and it kind of turned into something where people started subscribing for some reason and watching us do it. So down the road, if there's more bike tours, I'll certainly be sure to video it and vlog it, and maybe even have some different style stuff. Like if you guys want to see, I don't know, like a more cinematography style bike touring short film, leave a comment if that's what you want to see. Or if there's anything specifically that you guys would like to see from this channel, I'm always super open to hearing suggestions. I, for one, just don't have a ton of ideas beyond doing huge bike tours, and right now that is not possible to do. That's not something that I have a huge desire to go out and do another huge bike tour. Maybe at most like some week-long ones. But yeah, right now this channel is just gonna kind of stay still with what it has. But who knows, if you guys would like to see gear reviews, or there's any pieces of gear I have that you'd like to see talked about, or my opinion, just leave a comment. And yeah, if it seems like something that I have valuable information on, I'll do my best to review it. But other than that, I really appreciate you guys all subscribing to the channel, and always leaving supportive comments, being concerned for us when we weren't posting. That always cracked Tony and I up, that people were worried about us out there and we didn't post. But yeah, it was such an incredible journey. I mean, life-changing experience, just getting to see America at 10 miles an hour. Yeah, one of the best things that I've ever done, and I would recommend it to anyone who's thinking about doing it. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what your fitness ability is. There's no right way to do a bike tour. There's no right way to do a cross-country bike tour, other than just keep pedaling and go from point A to point B. And as long as you're keeping that up, you're doing it. So don't feel any comparison. Like, if you're watching our video and you're like, oh man, like I'm not doing what they were doing, or whoever you're watching, feeling comparison is silly, because bike touring is about you getting out and enjoying the country. It's about enjoying nature. And as long as you're focusing on what's going on around you and staying in the present moment, you're going to have an excellent time, and it's going to be incredible. So thank you guys for watching this video. Yeah, it's been great getting to kind of feel like I know you guys through the channel. So have a good one.